All right, everyone, we should be live. Let's make sure that's actually the case. How long before that becomes the next 10.2? We've got lots to cover today, including a slurry of polling. I'll try to get to that at the end because I think I've got 10 other news stories, actually, that I have to cover. I do see that chat is working over on Rumble, which means I'm going to drop the fucking Pixel Planet link. We'll be talking about that first, of course. Drop that in there. For all of you on Rumble, you can take that link that I just put in chat, and you should, because we're having some fun. I will explain momentarily. Let's make sure that the live stream's actually working. Yes, indeed it is. Anyway, overnight, we pushed back the Ottomans. At this point, it's no longer Turkey. They appear to be trying to form an empire of some sort on Pixel Planet. And there's a link as well pinned at the top of chat, live chat. If you happen to be watching on YouTube, please do take that link. Let me see how many people are aboard right now on the server. Yeah, there's almost 2,300 people live. The Turks are counterattacking, or the Ottomans, rather. They seem more intent upon assault than actually defending their own territory. Go and look at Turkey at large. If you zoom out, you can see the way it used to look. If you zoom in, you see the way it looks now. It's not a pretty sight. We've pretty much decimated their interior. And so they've pivoted to worrying about the Constantinople region, which we held for most of the night, as well as certain island locations along the shore. The exact coordinates that you've got there will take you to an area that's disputed. We've overrun much of it, but there is still a lot of red left. Now, here's the tactic. Number one, Bulgaria has been invaded by the Ottomans. Unfortunately, I don't know whether it's Greek players or clankers started pixeling in blue up there. That's not what we want. We're allied with the Bulgarians. Use their native green color. If you go up there, you can see there's still a little bit of red up on the side. Somebody tried pixeling in a chunk of blue. Don't do that. We're not invading Bulgaria. The same is true of Macedonia. For some reason, that's being invaded. I have a feeling that's Greek players. We're not involved with that struggle. And also, we're allied with the Italians. I know that they have their problems with the Greek players on the server. We're neutral in that. We're just, screwing around with the Ottomans at the moment. They do have an area on the southeast coast of their island. Somebody's, again, started pixeling it in blue. Don't do that. Use the dark red that's for the rest of Italy. We're trying to help all the neighbors of Greece as well in order to create camaraderie and an era of good feelings, because these countries, because there are fewer players, I think, online, overall, they can only defend their own territory, so they need our help as well. But the big goal is just to drop more of the Greek blue all over Turkey. Again, you can see there's a huge amount of it, but we must continue because they are attempting to counterattack as we speak. And so if you are, if you are amenable to playing Pixel Planet, it is fun. Trust me, it's fun for a reason. We can drive back the Ottoman invasion because they are invading back into Greece. The war will continue until they are completely subjugated, because apparently they have no intent whatsoever on actually stopping their oppressive actions. They fired the first shot, so we're going to continue until they stop. We'll see if there's a peace accord of some sort. Clankton will definitely have a seat at the table on that. Otherwise, fire and murder. Yeah, so anyway, I'll be monitoring that and, of course, playing around with it later. I see the Turks are griefing their own pumpkin at the moment, just outside of Constantinople. I don't know why. There's a picture of me there. Apparently, I'm bloody and there's cum dripping out of my mouth. This is normal for Pixel Planet. So yeah, I'll also monitor chat. If you go down to the chat, you will see the craziest shit that you've ever seen. It's a little bit like ICQ back in the day. One reason why I enjoy this. So yeah, keep removing the red in favor of the Greek blue. And you can always go over to Bulgaria or Italy and help them out as well. It's time for some super chats. We have Grevin Share, been up all night. Battle for Constantinople lasted almost 2 hours. Oh, it's still ongoing now. It's still contested. Aaron Bennett, the FBI raiding over 25 of Trump's allies and Bannon being arraigned shows we are in the end game of the current political paradigm. We're on chapter 1, unfortunately. This is Banana Republic mode. We will be talking about that. That Manx guy, love my daily sticks fix. So do I. But yeah, that is the first news story of the day. One of two. This is from Harmeet Dillon over on Twitter. And this is a California NCW GOP, the rep lawyer, chair, support my civil rights work at Liberty Center. 1 out of 2. DOJ's Capitol Siege section has been busy these last few days. Someone told a Politico reporter that 50 or so search warrants and grand jury subpoenas were being issued to Trump allies before it happened. Clients already being harassed by House J6 committee investigators. 2 out of 2. Were served with extremely broad subpoenas or warrant for phones and devices. Our clients at America First Women are among those targeted for their peaceful First Amendment protected speech about the 2020 election. These bullying tactics are designed to target and intimidate Trump supporters. And normally, if I don't get any further corroboration on something like this, and Tucker Carlson actually reporting on it, normally I'm skeptical. I'd say, okay, well, was it coincidental? I know that's beyond the pale, but you do have to consider it if you're doing unbiased political analysis, as I do. Is that a possibility? Could it be that some of those are not, that they're actually, the tale's not true? There was no warrant issued and the person's just claiming it. We do have to go through with a fine-tooth comb with these things. It does appear that this is unfortunately corroborated. So some dozens, they're saying 50 or so. I've seen 35 mentioned. I've seen 25 mentioned. So there's that wiggle room again. It does appear, unfortunately, that a number of people who were followers of MAGA were targeted by the now politicized FBI over the last 24 hours. This is pure banana republic mode. It's very sad to see liberals not calling it out. I mean, I don't expect them to because they got Trump derangement syndrome. Under normal contexts, if you didn't create a big lie like the legacy media, big tech, and the lame establishment have, that Trump is part of an evil empire of Nazis or something, or a Russian asset, normally you would see the ACLU getting involved. You would see other, Judicial Watch would get involved, etc. And you wouldn't see liberals proclaiming it to be justified. You would say that it was a witch hunt, because that's what it is. Unfortunately, you can see subpoenas and warrants issued at this point for literally no cause. We've got a dual system of justice in the United States. If a person is found to have committed is supposed to have committed second-degree murder, and they're in the right state, they don't even get bail. If a person spoke out against, Hong Kong in 2020 or something, then they immediately get subpoenaed. And it's clearly wrong. It's clearly unlawful as well. And we need to put this genie back in the bottle. I would ask the liberals, even if you hate Trump, you hate MAGA, you hate people like me who do independent commentary and aren't on the corporate dole or something. Do you want to hand that kind of wide-reaching discretion to a potential Republican administration in 2024? Because that's effectively what you're doing. You already did this with judicial appointments within the Senate, ending the filibuster for those. You saw how that operated with the SCOTUS appointments under Trump. You already did that. You were warned not to. You did it anyway. You were warned not to overstretch on abortion, thus the Dobbs decision, the end of Roe v. Wade. You were warned about these things. You were warned about guns, leading to the Bruen decision. Over and over again, you're warned not to overstretch. You're causing yourself to be damaged in the process. And it keeps happening over and over. It's almost like there's no self-awareness whatsoever. Grevin Share, well, 2 hours before we were overrun, lol. We will overrun them next on Pixel Planet. Michael Greco, did you see a Dutch city has banned meat advertisements? I saw that it was being considered. I don't know the city, though. Broken Sword. Hey, Sticks, if you want a good game that is similar to Pixel Planet, check out Crusader Kings 3. You can create a dynasty called the Clankers. Lol. The Spence Fencer. FBI did 35 GOP raids yesterday. This is Crystal Knocked. Yeah, it does seem like the night of the long knives or something like that. You already had the burning of the Reichstag with J6, actually. So, it's following it. And you've got the same economic situation, the same bullshit centralization, authoritarianism as the pig in a poke solution. Yes, we are going Weimar at the moment. All that remains is a completely collapsed economy and then the government to come in and try to disarm people. Your mother was a hamster. May whoever decided to cut the cameras during Ozzy's halftime show burn in the fiery depths of hell. Sebastian Monroe. Why is Governor Hochul flying flags at half-staff for the Queen? Didn't we fight a war over this? I thought Obama bowing was bad. Link sent in DM. Yeah, the United States should not fly flags half-staff for a foreign monarch under any circumstances, no matter how much you like her personally or at least have no problem with her. I don't have a huge problem with the Queen of England, now deceased, but yeah, that should be reserved for mainly for Americans, certainly not for monarchs. Watching in real time as the little red pixels disappear on Pixel Planet. How lovely. OMG puppies. Credit card companies coding gun and ammo purchases for tracking. Progressives use corporations to bypass our freedoms, rights, and privacy. It may be struck down by the federal courts, by the way. Next news story. North Korea declares itself a nuclear weapons state in irreversible move. It could just be bluster, but some of the things that they're saying are rather concerning. North Korea has passed a new law declaring itself a nuclear state, and a move leader Kim Jong-un says is irreversible. Kim vowed the country would never give up its nuclear weapons and said there could be no negotiations on denuclearization as he hailed the passage of the law, North Korean state media reported Friday. The new law also enshrines Pyongyang's right to use preemptive nuclear strikes to protect itself, updating a previous stance under which it said it would keep its weapons only until other countries denuclearized and would not use them preemptively against non-nuclear states. Now, of course, as a non-NPT signer, one of only two in the world that has such weapons, Israel's the other one. That's a little bit of an escalation of the Korean Peninsula crisis, which has been ongoing technically since the middle of the 1950s. Let me ask this. Do you think this would be happening if Donald Trump were president right now? I don't think so. Not in a million years. Yeah, best Korea, a bunch of commies. There was an attempt at rapprochement, and it was working under Donald Trump. Now we've got this shit to deal with. People are too busy. All the boomers, all the neocons would rather worry about Iran. They've never stated an intent to get a nuclear weapon. They just happen to have a good enrichment system. While they could potentially make one, they're light years behind the North Koreans, mainly because the Clinton administration gave the materials to North Korea to create a reactor. Oh, this will make them our friends. It's the same. It's an extension of the same policy we used under détente, which kind of worked. And so we extended it to China, and then we got them addicted to Coca-Cola, but they stayed tyrannical and imperialistic. And then we tried to export that model under Clinton to North Korea, and it didn't work. They took the material, they took the enriched materials and the reactor, and they started building bombs. And at first, primitive atomic weapons. The first one didn't work. Now they've got boosted weapons, probably, or at least much larger atomic weapons. And now they're claiming that they're fully nuclear. Whether that's the case or not remains to be seen. But they're definitely taking credit as though they are. And it's a massive escalation under Kim Jong-un's regime. And it's the fault of Joe Biden, largely, his weak foreign policy. Aaron Bennett, how will this situation affect the midterms in 2024, though? Well, people should repudiate the Biden administration and its political hatchetry. Hopefully that will end up being the case. I would say at this point, just vote the bums out. There's nothing else that you can do, really. If you try, even if you show up just to protest, you'll be called a terrorist. So, Ryan McDonald, USA, will they lock us down under climate crisis next? They may attempt to try. Yeah, it's a possibility. James Willis, can't wait for insect latte at Starbucks. Yeah, trust me, it's coming. The Spence Fencer, North Korea truly, honestly is terrified of a U.S. invasion. I don't think so. The U.S. doesn't want to invade North Korea. The U.S. Policy generally has been, well, they're not really fucking around with South Korea that much. That sort of peaked in the 1970s when they tried to assassinate the prime minister at the time. Since then, it has been an uneasy calm. Things reaching a crescendo under Donald Trump. He actually was the first U.S. president to set foot in North Korea after the partition in the 1950s. Did a good job, actually. It was one of his greatest successes. Unfortunately, the person who came afterwards, the current steward, is weak, pathetic, feckless, and doesn't understand Asian politics, so things have fallen apart. Another reason why we need Trump back. Beastie. Destiny has been doing a lot of risky content recently. Sneeko, Fresh and Fit, and Fuentes. He recently spoke with someone that brought up as an anarchist libertarian movement. Sticks, please talk to Destiny. No, the midget can shut the fuck up. I don't want to talk to him. I prefer to talk to people that are actually relevant. J1701D, have you read Sowell's version of The Anointed? Vision of the Anointed. No, I haven't, actually. So yeah, North Korea is saying it's now a true nuclear state, and it ain't giving up them weapons. Now, I wanted to talk about something else. And this is a very important story, and it seems, once again, I'm one of the few people actually pointing out reality here. Just in, New York has declared a state of emergency over polio. Now, normally you would say, oh shit, there's a polio outbreak in New York. Well, that's terrible. Now, what you actually have is that wastewater in certain parts of New York contain the polio virus, which is bad news, to be clear. That part is absolutely true. Here's the thing. You've only had one case of polio. It appears to have come from abroad. An infected person abroad had taken the oral vaccine, and under rare circumstances, the oral vaccine can actually morph into a live virus. It's not the same as the polio vaccine we use in the US, which is injected. That one doesn't do that. For cost-effective purposes, and because some cultures in polio-stricken areas don't like to be injected with vaccines, we've developed an oral vaccine. It doesn't work quite as well, but it is effective generally. Occasionally, though, you get someone who takes the oral vaccine and gets polio. Here's the problem. When I look at New York's wastewater system, we're talking about old, decrepit sewers. People have been joking about that for the last half century. Is it not more likely the case that instead of this being polio, patients are shitting and it's showing up in the wastewater? Just that the fact that there was a polio case caused them to test the water and realize that polio was there anyway because there are so many rodents in the sewers. This is the main vector, the main form of transmission for polio. It's rodent droppings. In the old days, the real problem was partially just sanitation. Rodents would get into the grain silo and they would poop, and people would eat the grain. They would eat the flour, they would eat the millet or whatever they were eating, and they'd get polio from this. There were outbreaks. It was linked mainly to grain storage at that time, or storage of food in general, root crops, potatoes, and shit. Rodents were profuse. The modern methods of sanitation were not quite modern at the time. And modern sanitation methods over the last few decades, really half century, in coordination with mass vaccination campaigns, have shoved polio to the edges of the world. There are only 3 countries left where it's endemic. I think Afghanistan, Pakistan, and I can't remember. I think there's one African nation where it's still endemic. But that doesn't mean that rodent populations don't still have polio. It just means that the human reservoir has largely been vaccinated or has no exposure to polio because of common modern grain storage. The problem is sewer systems are a little bit different. The good thing is that the average person doesn't go wading around in sewer water. But it's not a surprise that the polio virus is there because New York City alone has more rats than people, and sometimes they overlap. In the sewer system, there's a huge amount of food that's pumped into the sewer systems, and rats proliferate. They're everywhere. There are millions and millions and millions of them. They should test that wastewater too, because I guarantee there's polio there. It's not a surprise. It would be more surprising if they tested the wastewater system and didn't find polio in it. And so really, this is just fear-mongering. Do you remember a few years ago? I think it was in the wake of Ebola, actually. They tested the handrails in the subways in New York City, and they're like, oh shit, we found plague bacteria. Did they declare a state of emergency over the plague bacteria? No. If they tested it now, I guarantee they'd still find Yersinia pestis there. It's common, probably. It's not infecting people, though. Viral load's too low. Populations generally otherwise cleanly. Most people, I think, try to wash their hands after they go out in public. I know I do. Apparently, this is not common among some people, which is odd. Polio's in the wastewater system, but you haven't had any additional polio cases. The only explanation is that the rodent population is infected. It would be better to take the oral vaccine, put it onto nice little treats, and drop them all along the sewer lines. You could probably eradicate it in the rats in the New York City area in a single season if you did that. Give them food. Give them puppy chow that's been laced with the oral polio vaccine and leave it down there in piles for the rats to feast on, thus making themselves resistant to polio. But instead, they would rather declare a state of emergency so they can try to honk around public issues, which is exactly what they're doing. E100 Omega 123. People think a civil war will be like a Marvel movie where there's a single big battle, the good guys win, the bad guys lose, and everyone goes home. Really, it's going to be a mix between Beast of No Nations and Come and See. Well, the hope is, of course, it doesn't happen at all because it would destroy the world as we know it. And people will think that's funny and say, yeah, let the world burn. Yeah, until the internet shuts off, then they will shut up. Arnett23 me, did you hear about the Oregon governor race? The Republican may win since an independent is splitting the Democrat vote in the polls. That would be very funny. Cold Summer 91, can we all say Ireland's reaction to Queen's death is hilarious? Lizzie's in a box. I mean, it's funny in an edgy sort of way. As a non-monarchist, I would say, but then again, you know, as far as monarchs go, Queen Elizabeth did a reasonably good job. So they're just, they're sad about the fact that part of their island was taken over by people with superior technology. Sebastian Monroe, whatever happened to those 500 million vax doses we bought for Africa? Did we pay for it? How do I get my money back? Where's my money, Joey? Yeah, I wonder if they were deployed, actually. We're allowed to question the logistics of vaccines, just not the efficacy. Frederick John, GM, what is your opinion on the Kiwi Farms thing? I really don't have one because you see Kiwi Farms is pathetic and it's basically a soap opera soapbox for losers. But I don't believe that it should be banned off the internet because, again, and I explained this a couple times on stream, the fact that a couple of people on the site would make death threats or stalk people or dox them doesn't really reflect on the site. If that were the fact, you wouldn't have a Twitter. YouTube wouldn't exist. In fact, there'd be no websites as far as platforms go. Everything would just be publisher only and everything would be carefully checked through. It'd be like a China-style internet. We wouldn't be able to have a platform. Every single one of them ends up having live-streamed murders and rapes and shit like that, death threats. Happens all the time on Facebook. But yeah, I would say that generally speaking, Kiwi Farms is pathetic. So I don't give a fuck. On principle, I oppose them being banned off of the internet. That doesn't mean that I can't say that I don't really care enough to talk about it at length. Why John Fetterman just made a very smart move on debates. Is Chris Saliza on CNN trying to stroke his stroke-ridden cock. We're absolutely going to debate Dr. Oz, and that was really always our intent to do that, Fetterman told Politico. Yeah, after being encouraged for more than a month because you refused to do so. It was just simply only ever about addressing some of the lingering questions of the stroke, the auditory processing, and we're going to be able to work that out. Yeah, that's the only reason, which is why that when you were invited to hold a debate, and Oz said, you can name the time, you can have your notes, you will have a medical staff, you can have an earpiece, I don't care what you do. It was denied. And it was not only denied, it was called flat out impertinent. Well, Dr. Oz is making fun of the fact that I had a stroke. Well, that's not what was happening. He was giving you deference. Sort of like when Carrie Lake tells Katie Hobbs, hey, I want to debate you. You can even, you can write the questions yourself. You can appoint the moderator. Tell me when the fuck to show up and we'll have a debate. Which is why I think Carrie Lake will win in Arizona, by the way. Fetterman's decision to debate is being cast here by CNN as though it was some great brave step for stroke victims or something. Really what it is that the internal polling didn't look so good. And they said, look, if you don't debate Dr. Oz, you're going to fucking lose the election. It's better to go doddering up on stage and have the salad mouth sort of thing going on than to not debate him at all. It's better to at least show up. It's better to show up and give the people a spectacle and then hope that Dr. Oz kind of sort of says something that we can cast off in the legacy media. And I'm sure they coordinated with the Fetterman campaign on this. We can cast it off as though he was making fun of you. That really is the goal here. And they will attempt to do that, by the way. So we'll see. I'm not sure exactly. Does it even list when they're going to be debating? Let me check that really quickly. Live fact check time. Yeah, at some point between now and November. Okay, so we're not exactly sure when that will happen. When it does, I may actually live stream my reaction to it. I know people loved the live reactions that I was doing there for a while. It's just hard on this time zone. Drive-by commenter, hey Sticks, I don't think the worry about the Iran deal is so much nuclear as worry of money fueling mass casualty events in US, UK, and Europe. Oh no, I don't really give a shit. And what I'm talking about is Iran just enriching uranium. The deal I oppose because there's no reason to give Iran billions of US taxpayer dollars. We should have a law that prevents the government from giving anyone money until our own fiscal house is in order, and quite clearly under Bidenomics, it's not. So I oppose that deal. What I'm not worried about is Iran getting the bomb. Even if they do, it's not a threat to the US. It's not a threat to Europe. It's a threat to people in the general region. Well, fuck, why do I care? I don't live there. I have nothing to do with Iran or Iraq or any of these other countries, Syria, Kuwait, Israel, Palestine, the Armenians. This is an entirely different part of the world. As far as the US goes, it's none of my business. I just don't care. John Smith sent a euro without a comment. Thank you. Ryan McDonald, USA. Fetterman agrees to debate after early voting began. Yeah, that's the other cue for you. Of course. It's coincidental as always. Next news story. First, reminder. If you're watching on YouTube, at the top of chat pinned. If you're watching on Rumble or YouTube, it's also a link in the description. And also I put it in chat on Rumble. Keep in mind, we are on Pixel Planet. We are still overrunning the Ottoman Empire, which continues to try to attack literally all of its neighbors. I see somebody has been repairing Bulgaria up there. Italy looks a little bit better now as well, which is nice. They got invaded. I don't know what's happening in Macedonia at this moment, but keep taking up the Greek blue and pixeling in vast swaths of Anatolia. We're mainly focusing on the area that is roughly between the coast and west of that big vertical blue line that you see there, which is a little bit past the, what's his name, Ataturk monument. You literally can't place pixels on it. It's protected. By the way, you can always pressure the mods to protect the Greek flag that keeps getting griefed. I don't know why that's not protected and the Ataturk monument is. I guess they're choosing to take sides. Against Clankdom? Bad idea. Aussie's robots. We see the FBI conduct against political rivals. Imagine 87,000 weaponized IRS agents in Gestapo mode. Leftoids don't realize the tables can easily turn against them. P.S. Look for a war prior to the midterms. Yeah, Greece and Turkey, ironically, in real life, are sort of having it out diplomatically at the moment. Greece warning NATO there might be a looming war. Miso trashed. If I were him, I would use the stroke by Billy Squire for my ads. I don't know what that is, but okay. Next story. Dark clouds are forming over President Biden's economy. And this is an RCP piece, so this isn't coming from the legacy media. It's an opinion piece there by Bruce Thompson. President Biden thinks our economy is looking good. He says he feels good about it and claims the American economy is stronger than any other in the world. But the president is wrong. Dark clouds are forming over Biden's economy and financial markets are signaling economic trouble ahead. Inflation is still running at 40-year highs. I think we get new numbers in a couple of days, so hold on to your assholes. The economic growth has fallen for 2 consecutive quarters in a row. Gas prices are down from record highs in early summer, but they are still 60% higher than the day Biden took office. The darkest cloud over the economy is Federal Reserve Chairman Powell's Jackson Hole speech, where he essentially said he was determined to push the economy into a recession to fight inflation. By the way, and this is my take on this, and I will keep pointing this out every time I'm proven right on the issue. This is exactly why many months ago, when queried specifically by the legacy media, Joe Biden was asked, what's your plan to fight inflation? This was a few months before its peak. And his statement, and this is effectively a quote, my goal is to let the Fed do its job. That's his plan on inflation. It's blame shifting it to the Fed. The funny money spending belongs to Biden. The Bidenomics struggle against U.S. energy belongs to Biden. All of his other proposals, those are clearly Biden and to an extent Schumer, actually. The Fed had nothing to do with them. The Fed can only react by raising interest rates and slowing the economy. It was inevitable, and I warned of this more than half a year ago, that such an action would drive unemployment up. We saw it tick up last month. I wouldn't be surprised if it does so again. If you continue to have a lower GDP, if quarter 3 is negative, and you have rising unemployment, and inflation is not yet under control, and I don't believe that it will be, you have stagflation, you have officially a recession. There is no other way to put it. They can play word games right now and pretend that the general definition of recession doesn't apply because there are so many positive things about the U.S. economy. Look, unemployment's low. Well, if that goes away, then what's your fucking excuse? That's why Biden, realizing what was going to happen, he was told by staff, look, the only way to tackle the inflation you've caused is to drive up the interest rates and slow the economy. That means stagflation. There will be a period of some months where inflation remains high, but unemployment is also ticking up. And that's really going to make people very angry. Oh, that's okay, says Joe Biden. I'll just blame the Fed for it. And so he is. And this is why you see a bunch of astroturfed articles by the legacy media effectively doing just that. SP Elite. Weird to see rightoids unironically simp for the IRA, considering they were commies, and the same for Thatcher hate. She was very anti-commie, I hear, too. True. The baby is singing at the moment. Truth Hurts 18. People crying over the recent monarch passing seem to forget the two sons she raised. One was a close friend of Savile and Peter Ball. The other was a close friend of a man who didn't kill himself. Fact check. Mostly true. I'm not crying over. I'm just saying that I'm not going to go full Ireland right now. Fuckface 420. Buy silver and praise the great Brandon. I hold silver. Corto Maltese. I used to really dislike you and your cocky attitude. Then I begrudgingly admitted that you were right and just watched for news. Now I legitimately look forward to your streams. It's a rare person that can admit that they're wrong, so I admire that. Thank you very much. So yeah, the economy's, it's going to get worse before it gets better. It's just a matter of what metrics are the ones getting worse. Speaking of economies getting worse, China's economy is in bad shape and could stay that way for a while. And this is CNN Business that's admitting to this, by the way. In just a moment, I'm going to have to mute this and see what's going on. All right, everyone, my apologies for that. The baby has just decided to fuss. She was fed. She didn't poop her diaper or anything. So it's just one of those times, one of those wonderful moments in parenting. We have a Rumble chat. Cam2425IA, rant for me because I'm a bot. Beep boop. And do we have any others over here on just a second? Opinionated junkie, Joe Biden equals paused Theoden. yeah, he does resemble Theoden when Saruman was ripping his soul apart. David Lara, bug question, is insect chitin dangerous, yes or no? No, it's mainly indigestible. You shouldn't eat bugs generally anyway, though, because it's a ploy by the deep state to try to get you to do that while they enjoy all the filet mignon. Deadly Raver. The poor baby is probably having a nightmare that Brandon is coming to sniff her. You got to save her from a very real monster, Sticks. Now, he's over in the United States. He's too busy destroying the U.S. economy to come to the Netherlands. Jay Reed, if the MAGA House impeaches Biden next term, will it receive the same coverage as Trump's? What repercussions will it have on Biden politically? I think they should. I think he's done plenty of impeachable things. It'll have limited repercussions. Among some independent voters, it'll matter. Ultimately, it will be a show trial because the Senate will vote to acquit. But they should impeach Joe Biden for various high crimes and misdemeanors. They should also definitely look into the Hunter case. Right now, they should be doing everything legally to retain evidence. Not that much of it's not already public. So yeah, China's economy has some problems. China is beset by severe economic problems. Growth has stalled. Youth unemployment is at a record high. The housing market is collapsing, and companies are struggling with recurring supply chain headaches. That's self-imposed, self-inflicted because China keeps locking down its ports for no reason whatsoever. It insists upon the zero COVID mythology that literally every other country in the world has already decided not to go with. The world's second biggest economy is grappling with the impact of severe drought, and its vast real estate sector is suffering the consequences of running up too much debt. Didn't I talk about this last year, that there were foreshocks of this exact situation happening? Because I'm pretty sure that I did. I know that it was at least by early this year. The problem is that they are centrally planned to the greatest extent. So China has pumped money into growth that doesn't really exist. Effectively, it's pumped the economy with things that are only filled up by fumes instead of real fuel. And now they expect what they would have to do is impose effectively austerity. Which they're clearly not going to do. I don't know that they're going to manage to get their economic genie back in the bottle before they end up with a collapse. The good news is this means that the Chinese economy collapses, and really the Chinese government deserves the crisis that will come. Hopefully it leads to China being massively weakened on a world scale. The problem is that China is a major exporter to the U.S., the U.S. a major exporter to Europe, by the way, which is already having its own recessionary issues. And a ripple effect would be felt because China is such a manufacturing muscle and a major importer, by the way, of food from certain parts of the world. The ripple effect will deepen the economic crisis elsewhere. This could set off a chain reaction. If that happens, you could be looking at the Second Great Depression. And while there may be no other option to finally correct the economic situation of the world, but for everyone to suffer for a good half decade, it would be rather regrettable. Notable is that the globalists will not suffer. They'll still have the limos and the filet mignon. So, incognito. Baby talk for I'm Your Princess, give me attention. She's getting plenty of attention. She's up there with her mother. Make punk rock great again. Hey, Sticks, been a while since I could catch a live stream. Hope all is well and that Mama Bear and Baby Bear are great as well. Rock on. Yeah, things are pretty great, actually. Also, the weather has shifted and it finally looks like autumn. It's, it's basically Halloween. It's the middle of September. It's supposed to be like this, cool, cloudy, and a little bit of fog. The Dex J. Illinois recently passed the Safe T Act as the most devastating piece of legislation in modern history. This will produce chaos in public safety. Yeah, it's pretty stupid when you really take a look at it. Cold Summer 91. Do you think polio could get worse? Well, eventually it could mutate. There's already 3 variants of it. That would be quite hazardous. Thankfully, it doesn't seem to be inclined to do so. What we really need to do is work on eradicating it in rodent populations in places where it's present. I have a feeling that the polio was there long before this recent case a couple of months ago. They had one person in New York, north of New York City. They got polio from interacting with someone abroad who had polio. It appears to be linked to the oral vaccine in that case. Again, just for the anti-vaxxers to know, the injected vaccine that the U.S. and Western nations use is not the same as the oral vaccine that we deploy in the sub-third world, in Afghanistan and Pakistan and so forth. So don't get your knickers in a twist. Then they started testing the water. I think they were worried there was going to be an outbreak, and they found it in the water. But there are so many rodents in the water that probably do carry polio that a better solution would be to simply use bait drops. We do this, by the way, in New England with rabies. We use the rabies vaccine, we put it into bait drops, and then we drop it in areas where raccoons are common. And occasionally someone's dog will eat it while they get immunized too, which is great. And that helps to prevent the spread of rabies. You don't really have major rabies outbreaks in New England and New York as a result of this. We should massively expand the program. We could eradicate rabies probably too. There aren't that many animal populations in which it's common along the spine of the Appalachians. We could probably get rid of rabies, but nobody's willing to put in the money or the effort to do so. A bunch of NIMBYists aren't willing to help out. Oh my God, we got deforestation, but don't you ask me to plant a fucking tree because that requires work. Zach the Celtic Sky, I would say also impeach Biden for war crimes. He has actually dropped more bombs than W at this point in his presidency. Prosecute Brandon. Well, that wouldn't be a crime under U.S. law, though. That's the problem. But Quid Pro Joe has definitely committed some crimes while in office. Sebastian Monroe, I'd cry too if I found out Biden screwed my future. Yeah, Biden thankfully doesn't run the Dutch economy. That's why it's working better than the U.S. economy in most states right now. SP Elite, if CHN collapses, what would happen non-economy wise? China would muddle through it. You might, if things really go well, you might see the collapse of the Communist Party there, but I wouldn't expect it. But it would be nice if China grew much weaker on the world scale. Ironically, all of its neighbors would agree with this assessment. People in Western countries that have never been to China, meanwhile, who have red berets and Che Guevara shirts, they would be really cut up over it. They would immediately start blaming the CIA, just as they did with Venezuela when their own centrality and debt spending caused them to collapse. Alex Bogey, about Ukraine versus Russia. As a Russian who was born in Ukraine, not fun being blamed for the sins of the commies. Oppressing its Russian population does not justify invasion, but maybe separatism. Yeah, next one. Bernie Sanders says he'll vote against keeping the government open if Manchin's disastrous side deal on energy is included. Yes, indeed. The liberals are trying to pass a sweeping, massive, bloated budget, as usual. But Joe Manchin wants energy development. The bill is set to ease regulations around building a new oil pipeline. So I guess we're starting the concept of Keystone so we can refine more of our own oil and or Canadian oil so we can get it domestically. So we're less reliant on the Middle East. So that maybe we can go back to being a net exporter so we can help the fucking Europeans. But Bernie Sanders hates U.S. workers. He doesn't want this to happen. And I find it so funny that union-loving Bernie hates oil and coal and gas workers so much. One of the biggest working-class unionized industries in the entire country, which is energy. In fact, it might arguably be the biggest one for that socioeconomic rung. Oh no, we can't create any more oil jobs. We need to get these people remedial training to go mine lithium. Yeah, instead of mining up oil out of the ground, they need to go and strip mine lithium, in other words, so that we can control people's movements more easily. It's bullshit. The Green New Deal thing is bullshit. Craptivism against climate change is bullshit. Bernie Sanders is a piece of shit. Manchin is correct. Hopefully it gets inserted anyway and it stymies the budget. Let the government shut down. Fucking keep it shut down till the end of Biden's term for all anyone reasonable cares. It would be better than the alternative, which is allowing them to continue spending money anyway. He also warned of a looming revolt among House Dems. Yes, apparently a significant proportion of House Democrats will not vote for the new budget. But that being said, it may not matter because you may get Republicans voting for it. I think they would want a little bit less meat on them bones and parse it down a little bit. They'll do the neocon thing and say it needs to be 5% less wasteful. Ja660 on Rumble. Hi, Sticks. Wondering if you have any idea what my lefty coworker is talking about. He said more CIA assets are being found, and this is somehow due to Trump. Found stories about it, can't find the link. Yes, MSNBC the other day, Joy Reid specifically, long-term leftoid conspiracy theorist, genuinely unlikable individual, was rambling actually on a panel there and talking about how Trump's actions have caused the U.S. spies to be discovered. Clearly, thus, Donald Trump must have been selling secret material to Russia or China or something. The problem is that you don't even know what the classified materials are. There is no current indicator, and nobody in the legacy media would have any clue about this, so she's talking out of her ass, that in those classified materials, any proper names were even used. They don't have a clue. So it's all speculative. It's another hit piece against Donald Trump. And that is the reality. Your friend there is taking it from the MSNBC panel in which she started rambling about how U.S. spies were being killed or captured because of Donald Trump having classified material. So far, I have heard not one credible individual actually aware of the investigation claiming that any of the information was ever compromised. So even if it had a list of U.S. spies, oh, here's where they are, and here's their code names, and here's their shortwave radio number station decryptors and stuff. Well, if it was never open to anyone from any other country or to anyone without access in the U.S., literally doesn't matter at all. The Happy Plague Doctor, when are the Europeans doing to help Americans? Well, Europe buys a huge amount of U.S. goods, various foodstuffs, although less here, I think, in the food island known as the Netherlands, cars, aviation, materials, various processed goods, electronics, computers, everything under the sun, actually. The U.S. is no slouch when it comes to exports. It's just not as export-friendly as China because of our shitty economy. Next story. Lori Lightfoot bust illegal immigrants out of Chicago. Yes, indeed, Gollum, or Beetlejuice, as some people refer to her as, has taken the step of busing people out of Chicago. Now, I thought that the Democrats were all about give us your tired, huddled masses, but for some reason, Chicago, which is open to, people who just committed second-degree murder, they can wander around as they want. They don't want the starving immigrants in Chicago. It's too much for them. And it's very, very funny because she tried to bring up like Christian faith and stupid shit like that in the context. And she's like, well, it's not very Christian and charitable for the Texans and Arizonans to be busing illegals up here, who voluntarily got on the buses after being given a free ticket, by the way. They were not compelled to leave. But it's perfectly charitable for Texans and Arizonans to be utterly swamped and overrun to the point where the Border Patrol can't even keep up with the caseloads. And therefore, they just have to let people go half processed. You no longer have a remain in Mexico policy. You don't have any real attempt to defend the border. And so this is what happens. And this is the third individual who has done this. The New York City government has weighed in. What's his name there of New York? And Bowser down in D.C. have also been doing this. They get busloads of people who are illegally in the United States because Texas can't hold them all and Arizona can't either. And they're not being very charitable now, are they? It's funny because a couple of weeks ago, I can't remember, the leftoid outlet was actually criticizing them for this. Yeah, the left actually criticizing Democrats. That's a bellwether that it's not a great stance they're taking. They were criticizing Bowser specifically and saying, look, you have the wonderful opportunity to take these people in and politically grandstand, really, but and make the case that you love them so much and you're sorry about how the Texans treated them and stuff, and create a contrast. But these people aren't creating a contrast. They're just shuffling them off to the next city. And I feel very sorry for them. They came to what they thought was a land of opportunity. Instead, they ended up coming to the land of opportunism, as they will unfortunately have to see. The good stuff. How do you play Pixel Planet? Well, you go to Pixel Planet, and then you pick a color, and then you pixel something in. We're still fighting the Ottomans at the moment. We're going to need more clankers, though, so take that link in the description or at the top of chat if you're on YouTube, in the live chat area, and start pixeling in all the red over in Turkey with the Greek blue colors. Please do not attempt to grief the Bulgarians or Italians. They're loosely allied with us. Maybe not with Greece itself, but with clankdom in general. But yeah, the Turks are counterattacking at the moment, but I don't know. They're not making as much progress as they did the other day. I think we might be demoralizing them. We'll keep it up. I'll do a one-off video later on the subject too, maybe, although I did one this morning. But just take a look at the damage that we've done, and keep in mind that was mostly done overnight. Look at the vast area that clankdom has completely obliterated. Cold Summer 91, do you think Canada will fall in 20 years? Maybe, but I don't think so. They might become more of an economic backwater under Trudeau's shitty policies, though. Trump and Justice Department submit special master nominees to review Mar-a-Lago documents. I love this one. I talked about it this morning, actually. This is the main video. You've got 4 people that have been put forth before Judge Cannon for consideration to be the special master. 2 of them were put forth by the DOJ. 2 of them were put forth by Donald Trump. This was the deal. We're still not sure about the timeline for access for choosing. Trump wants 90 days. The DOJ wants it done by the middle of October, which is a reasonable amount of time. I don't think that it really matters. And the special master, whoever's chosen, then it has to be determined whether they have access to the classified material. I think it kind of depends on who's chosen. I don't think the DOJ would care if it was someone that they put forth. The 2 DOJ choices to consider are a Clinton appointee and a W appointee. That's obviously a conflict of interest. The Bushes and the Clintons really fucking hate Trump. Trump put forth one individual who doesn't have any judicial experience. Something Junior here? It was Huck Jr. I don't think he can be chosen because he's never been a judge. That leaves one person, which is former Judge Raymond Dearie, Reagan appointee. Did actually work with the FISA courts at one point. This is one of the people Trump put forward. I think that's the most likely due to both seniority and the fact that if they choose the DOJ appointee, they know that it'll look partisan. If they choose someone without judicial experience, it'll make it look like the court's siding with Trump. I think they'll probably choose Dearie. That's my gut instinct. You could do worse. And then that person, they have to give them a timeline. They have to tell them what they can go through. I think that the special master will be appointed. I can't tell you whether they'll gain access to the classified material. And I don't really have a prediction, nor does it really matter, on whether they do the Trump 90-day timeline, which pushes it past the midterms, or the DOJ's timeline, which pushes it up to within a few weeks of midterms. And again, it's going to take a while to go through 10,000+ pages of material. So I wouldn't expect them to make a decision until after the midterms anyway. By then, Trump will probably have announced his presidential candidacy, and we'll see what happens. But it is interesting because I don't know why Trump even put forth Huck Jr. Trump's legal team nominated lawyer Paul Huck Jr. and Judge Raymond Dearie to serve as special master. Huck, who has his own law firm, had been a partner at the Jones Day law firm, which represented the Trump campaign in 2016, and a contributor to the conservative legal organization, the Federalist Society. While this doesn't sound like a bad person, it would create a potential conflict of interest when you're trying to appoint someone to be the master over those documents that is not supposed to be making political decisions. The same is regarding the ones that were put forth by the DOJ. Let's see. Griffith later co-authored a report alongside other prominent conservative lawyers, conservative Bush appointee. Yeah, that really makes sense. And officials debunking Trump's lies about the 2020 election. And he publicly endorsed President Joe Biden's nomination of Ketanji Brown. Jones, the other one, a Bill Clinton appointee to the federal bench, is a former federal prosecutor and retired judge from the Southern District of New York from 1995 to 2012. She was tapped to serve as special master to examine materials seized during an FBI raid of Rudy Giuliani's home. Also a special master in the Michael Cohen case to make sure investigators didn't sweep up any documents that were attorney-client privileged. Both Giuliani and Cohen were Trump's lawyers when they were investigated by the DOJ. Both of those individuals are totally unacceptable. But then again, so would one of Trump's potential appointees who's never had any judiciary experience. That leaves one individual who happens to have been on the FISA court. And that's not necessarily something that's a positive to me, but it would give them legal chops and make them look more unbiased, because the FISA court, of course, is a rubber stamp for the U.S. government. So I think Trump might actually get one of his special masters appointed. Mopey Hornet, hey Sticks, with Nick Rekieta and Mr. Medicare joining Fediverse, when will you make the move to it? No thanks. I think that I'll stick with the sites that I'm already using. Viking Woman 1988, Clank, but this moon sucked for me. Sad Clank. Aw. And then, how did Republican fear-mongering about the IRS shadow army go mainstream by Ruth Brownstein? The party has embraced a precise brand of anti-government rhetoric, with the agency the latest target, and it's drawing on an old playbook. Let me ask this. They're citing George W. and Herbert Walker in this article, and to an extent Reagan, as far as them expanding or maintaining the IRS and having no problem with it. And what I look at when I see this article is just the uniparty. The uniparty is the radical notion that people like George W., Herbert Walker, Mitt Romney, John McCain, etc., are really not that deviated from neoliberal movements. That is Joe Biden, that is Barack Obama, the Clinton family, and so forth. They're kind of fundamentally structurally similar, at least on many meaningful issues. They do deviate on some, but they have more overlap than they have divergence, generally speaking. Is this not evidence of that the MAGA Republicans deviate from the old uniparty norm within the GOP, which is, hey, I know we campaign on lower taxes, but we're going to leave the IRS alone. We don't need to do anything about them. Yeah, we campaign on less regulation, but we're not going to do anything about the overburdensome EPA. Yeah, we campaigned on we love guns, but we're not going to touch the NFA. That's the old guard of Republicans. That's the uniparty system. They're basically the same as Biden liberals. The new Republican Party, with people like Boebert, Marjorie Taylor Greene, Rand Paul would be a stand-in here, I would argue as well. Certainly somebody like Massey, Trump himself, his inner circle, the people associated with him, all of these people are different from yesteryear's Republicans. They're different. And I think that's a good thing because they actually have balls when it comes to certain issues. The old wave of Republicans, number one, were sellouts, and number two, had no balls. If you called them bigoted, they would say, no, I'm less bigoted than you. No, I love tacos and stuff like that. They would sound like Jill Biden trying to compare people to breakfast tacos, and inevitably they would say it wrong and do and say stupid shit, and they would get their asses handed to them for it. Romney had this problem. You remember when he was like, who let the dogs out? Or he shows up at a NASCAR race or something, and there are these people, they have these cheap ass like $5 plastic ponchos, and he's like, whoa, those are fancy. Oh, those are really, those must be expensive. And there's stupid shit like that. Trump, meanwhile, said, yeah, I'm rich, and I fucking deal with it. He never tried to keep up the appearances. The people associated with him, they don't try to keep up the appearances. They're more real, if that makes any sense. And I'm not taken in by Trump worship cult or like Super MAGA or something. Like Ultra MAGA is a funny meme, but I'm an independent voter. But they are different. They're not the same, and that's good. It's good that they're not like John McCain. It's good to be able to joke about his tumors. It's good to be able to joke about George W. and his warmongering. It's good that Liz Cheney lost her job. These are not bad things. They're not bad for the GOP. It would be better to field realistic candidates from MAGA and have half of them lose than to get a bunch of neocons in there anyway, because nothing changes. That's the whole name of the game. So, yeah, I mean, you look at this. Just read through the fucking article. Fear-mongering about the IRS. Yeah, nobody should be concerned about the IRS more than doubling in size. It won't cause any problems. And above all, the IRS could never be politicized. Just ignored Lois Lerner's existence. It never happened before. Yeah, it's been happening the entire fucking time for the last half century, but it won't happen anymore. Orange man bad. Fubar 2020, they should bust them right back to Beetlejuice. That'd be funny if they did. Although they were sending him to suburbs and towns around Chicago, and they'll keep doing that. So enjoy your present from Gollum. Yeah, I'm still watching Pixel Planet. We are making more progress in the Bosphorus region. Keep it up. Don't worry, I'll be joining the fray later. But with 2,200 people on the server, you can expect a significant amount of lag. We've been lagging the server almost fucking nonstop now for 5 or 6 days. So, and Chad is definitely something else to behold. Krokmanar, Illinois just passed the SAFE-T Act to eliminate cash bail starting 1/1/2023, and this includes releasing most violent offenders. Yeah, apparently if you commit second-degree murder in Illinois now, you can get cashless bail, you go free the next day after processing, and then you can go right out and do it again. Remember, you haven't actually been found guilty of a crime. What's going to stop you from going back to the alley and saying, shit, I only killed 2 people earlier. Well, I got to keep up my quota for Satan or something like that. So then you go to the hood alley, the ghetto, and you get your next piece. It's probably a shitty piece, but, you know, it probably functions for a while, and kill 2 more people. Oh, thank goodness. I fulfilled my murder quota for this week. And then maybe you get bail, cashless bail again. Unless it's a total premeditated slaughter. Apparently, there's no crime for which you're actually going to be held. Oh, you raped an old woman? Well, feel free to go do it again on your... bye, sir. We've got... I'm sorry, sir. Very respectfully, we must take you in and fingerprint you. And then you'll have to fill out a couple of forms, and we'll talk to you briefly. Don't worry, you can go out and rape some more infants later. These people are goddamn nuts. It's one thing if you're talking about drug possession... you didn't pay your fine for jaywalking or something, double parking. Nobody cares. There shouldn't be any bail for minor crimes. There also shouldn't be any bail set or any significant bail for non-violent, more significant crimes. Like, unless you literally, like, stole $1 billion, I'm fine with that. You're not a violent felon. You shouldn't even lose your right to bear arms at that point, even if you're a felon. But we're talking about second-degree murder, aggravated assault, attempted vehicular homicide, rape. These are not nonviolent crimes, and they are not insignificant. This isn't simple assault. Okay, you punched a dude at the bar over a bowl of chips or something. Okay, maybe you restrict the bail to $5 or something just because it's fucking funny. It's the town drunk. He's going to get out, probably do it again. Let's just hope he never whips out a switchblade. But for significant crimes, oh, Jesus. Pixel Planet crashed. Wouldn't even surprise me, by the way. Anyway, I'm going to go offline here because there's a lot of noise in the background. Also, my throat's getting a little bit hoarse. It's been a little bit dry today, which is odd because this is the first nice, cool, rainy day we've had in a while. Jared Pierce, don't worry, it's just legal theory talked about in law schools. Yes, exactly. I was told that the critical race theory side of criminal justice, so-called, wasn't real and that it was all in my head. I was being gaslit by evil conservatives that just want to keep brown people down. But now it turns out that it's actually true. Couldn't have happened to a nicer state. That's about all.